Teresa de Avila, The Interior Castle, Third Mentions. This is some of what Teresa said in the Third Mentions. Chapter 1. To those who by the mercy of God have overcome in these combats, have entered the Third Mentions. Blessed is the man who feared the Lord. We shall certainly be right in calling such a man blessed, for unless he turns back, he is, so far as we can tell, on a straight road to salvation. For life without thee is nothing but death many times over, and constant dread at the possibility of losing thee forever. There are many such souls in the world. Their most desirous not to offend His Majesty. They avoid committing even venial sins. They love doing penance. They spend hours in recollection. They use their time well. They practice works of charity towards their neighbors. And they are very careful in their speech and dress. This is certainly a desirable state, and there seems no reason why they should be denied entrance to the very last of the mentions. We all say we desire it, but if the Lord is to take complete possession of the soul, more than that is necessary. Words are not enough, any more than they were for the young man when the Lord told him what to do if he wished to be perfect. Matthew 19:16-22. What he needs is the resoluteness of our will. Where there is true humility, even if God never grants the soul favors, He will give it peace and resignation to His will. Chapter 2. Few souls have for many years lived upright. His Majesty has sent them tests. They have become so restless and depressed. It is God's will that His elect should be conscious of their misery, and so He withdraws. They are still grieving about earthly things. Let us desire that not our wills, but His will be done. Let us practice humility. If we are truly humble, God will come to heal us. When we proceed with all this caution, we find stumbling blocks everywhere, for we are afraid of everything. For the love of the Lord, let us leave our reasons and fears in His hands. The journey demands great humility, and it is the lack of this which prevents us from making progress. Without complete self-renunciation, the state is very odious and oppressive. For perfection consists not in consolations, but in the increase of love. Those of us in this state should be most studious to render ready obedience, so that they might not be following their own will in anything. For they are so near the first mentions that they might easily return to them, since their fortitude is not built upon suffering. May He be forever blessed. So here we are in the Third Mentions, and someone who's in the Third Mentions, St. Teresa sees us in these first three mentions for years, for a long time. Our spiritual growth has to mature. And when she writes chapter about the Third Mentions, she sees the rich young ruler from the Gospels. Matthew chapter 19 verses 16-22, St. Mark chapter 10 verses 17-27, and the Gospel of St. Luke chapter 18 verses 18-23. All of them talk about this rich young man encounter with Jesus. And this was the favorite passage for St. John Paul II, and this is where Bishop Robert
Barron summarizes about the writings of Jean Paul II, which is called Veritatis Splendor. And he says the Pope sees three great moral themes. One, the objectivity of the good, that no one is good but God alone. Number two, the indispensability of the commandments. And number three, the call to radical self-gift, which is refused in the Gospels by the rich young men. How radically are we willing to live the moral life? Bishop Robert Barron says, will we follow Jesus or walk away sad? This is some of what St. John Paul II writes in Veritatis Splendor. Teacher, this is chapter 1. Teacher, what good must I do? Matthew 19, verse 16. But if God alone is the good, no human effort, not even the most rigorous observance of the commandments, succeeds in fulfilling the law. That is acknowledging the Lord as God and rendering him the worship due to him alone. The fulfillment can come only from a gift of God. It's a gift of God. And so on our own, we're not capable of any good. It's a gift from God. Both the Old and the New Testament explicitly affirm that without love of neighbor, made concrete in keeping the commandments, genuine love for God is not possible. We're not able to love God without loving our neighbor. It's not possible. And here's Matthew 19, verse 21. If you wish to be perfect, and this is what St. John Paul II says, the conditions for the moral growth of man who has been called to perfection, the young man, having observed all the commandments, shows that he is incapable of taking the next step by himself alone. To do so requires mature human freedom. So here's your choice. If you wish to be perfect, this is how God talks to you. If you wish to be perfect. And here's God's gift of grace. Come follow me. And this might not happen today or tomorrow. It might take years for our spiritual growth. It could take years for God to call us. It could be tomorrow. It could be now. Maybe you are ready. And if you are called and you hear God calling you to follow him, you have to make that choice for yourself. Perfection, this is St. John Paul II continues. Perfection demands that maturity in self-giving to which human freedom is called. And then this vocation to perfect love is not restricted to a small group of individuals. The invitation, go sell your possessions and give the money to the poor, and the promise you will have treasure in heaven, are meant for everyone. Full meaning of the commandment of love for neighbor, come follow me, is the new specific form of the commandment of love of God. Both stand at the service of a single and invisible charity. Come, follow me. Matthew 19, verse 21. The way, at the same time, the content of this perfection consists in the following of Jesus. Once one has given up one's own wealth and very self. And Jesus says in Matthew 16, verse 24, if any man would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. So this is what St. John Paul II had to say about this passage. And St. Teresa confirms, she says it's God's grace. To continue to next mention, to mention number 4. But we can constantly strive in growing our love for our neighbor by following commandments. And in the same time, growing our love for God. And when he calls us, come follow me, you have a choice to make. So I'll see you in the 4th mention. Thank you, and God bless.
Here's a quick review. In the first mention, you enter through prayer, humility, and self-knowledge. In the second mention, you're still in venial sin, but you keep praying. in the third mention, you keep commandments, but you're still attached to the world.